With all three statue heads in their possession, Leon and Ashley open the way to the ballroom before a bunch of zealots come after them. A zealot on the top floor activates a switch that traps Leon in a cage, which I'm guessing is meant to be a reimagining of that cage sequence from Resident Evil 4 OG, but reserved for a cutscene instead. Leon tells Ashley to run away from the zealots while he deals with crossbow zealots and a couple of zealots that somehow managed to get inside the cage, even though the cage was raised before any enemy got inside. If these enemies got inside, you'd assume the door was unlocked, but apparently not. And this key that opens the door is on the zealot that pulled the switch. So how did they get in? It makes no sense. This then cues what would have been a heart-pounding, tense moment with Leon having to make a lot of quick decisions and reactions while dealing with the enemies in a better Resident Evil title, but in the context of Resident Evil 4 Remilk, it just feels on par with false advertising. I just shake my head with disapproval at how jarring this entire scene is in relation to the gameplay. I hate it when the cutscenes showcase disparities, where Leon is portrayed as being proficient during combat, yet during gameplay, Leon is incredibly sluggish, incompetent, and a total pushover. You first have Leon rolling out of the way of a zealot using a flail, which he can't do during gameplay. He has to run the gambit with his sluggish movement, or deflect the flail while getting no knockback whatsoever, and the only time he rolls is when you're doing QTEs. You then have the zealots flinching from pistol shots during this cutscene, yet the enemies just walk through your bullets like you're back in the 80s, where games were still being developed and flinch animations were non-existent, and it looks so outdated and stupid. Like, stop pretending you care about these fundamental designs, new Capcom. You then have Leon stabbing a zealot from the front, which never occurs because Leon can only stab enemies from behind, even when he makes them flinch, and he only stabs the enemy from the front when they're knocked against a wall or when he makes them kneel with a shot to the leg, and the knife execution prompt appears for a second when the kneeling animation starts. You then have Leon using the zealot's body as a human shield to shield himself from crossbow bolts, which obviously isn't a mechanic even though enemy projectiles do clip on the enemies. You then have Leon reacting quickly to the zealot's attacks, yet when he was dealing with Mendez, he opted to just stand around like an idiot and let Mendez incapacitate him. You then have Leon headshotting or stabbing the enemies in the head, yet he wasn't exactly keen on going for headshots when dealing with Mendez. This entire cutscene is laughable with the discrepancies in Leon's capabilities and thought processes. Give me a break, new Capcom. Stop trying to portray Leon like he's awesome in this pre-alpha. I've already shown so many times how much Leon acts out of character. He is the most incompetent version of the character I have ever seen, and you're showing this lie right here. Are you kidding me? This entire scene is so hollow in the end, and while Leon is dealing with all these zealots, Ashley is running away from two zealots before she locks the door behind her. She then remembers Leon's words from the end of chapter 8 and says to herself not to run and to go save Leon, which is ironic because she'll be spending the next couple of minutes running from the Armaduras. And I don't understand the context of this quote. She acts like she's been running from Leon constantly, which she hasn't. If anything, she's been so clingy to the point of getting in the way of the gameplay. Is she only saying this to prevent her emotions from taking over and making herself feel brave so that she focuses on reuniting with Leon? Is she only saying this to remind herself that despite being afraid of hurting Leon thanks to her infection and connection to Sadler, she still needs to not run away from him like she did at the end of chapter 7 and instead do her best to stay near him? Is this what Leon was trying to convey in chapter 8? That instead of running away from him, she needs to do her best to stay with him so that they can move forward and make progress with getting out of here? Gee, this would have felt like an important character moment if the timing of the corresponding quotes was better in the screenplay, if the gameplay with Ashley was better, and the writing was a lot better. Instead, I just giggle at Ashley's timing with saying this quote, and just think that Ashley only said this to remind the player about that conversation they had back in chapter 8. This quote does nothing to connect me to Ashley's character in the context of the scenario we're about to do. We then take control of Ashley and do a pretty boring sequence that involves using a lantern filled with blue flames that projects a blue light which freezes the plagas, which makes no sense. And for once, I can agree with Ashley as she voices the same confusion as me with why a simple blue light is able to freeze the plagas. It was just established earlier that close proximity to blue flames is what freezes the plagas, but now a blue light is able to do the same. I get that plagas are vulnerable to sunlight and the light emitted by flash grenades, but there's no way lantern light is able to work the same way. This mechanic of freezing the Armaduras by looking at them just feels like Rose's ability to slow enemies down in the Shadows of Rose DLC. At least in that DLC, because everything was taking place in the realm of consciousness, you could understand the choice in presentation. Here, it makes no sense and it just feels like something straight out of Doctor Who with the weeping angels. All this fantastical nonsense just to showcase that Ashley is being brave and not running from her fears, and to also give the player something to do. This is their idea of inspiring Ashley design? Are you serious? And you just have to wonder why they didn't try to build an incendiary grenade mechanic around these blue flames, and why Leon doesn't utilize this new knowledge of a vulnerability to his advantage. If Resident Evil 4 OG had incendiary grenades, why would new Capcom remove them and instead build the flames around fantasy garbage? It's so stupid just thinking about it. And just just seeing the effects of the blue flames and also the effects of the crimson flames from those red zealots during my blind playthrough reminded me of what Ubisoft did with the Isu in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla. The Isu were originally a very advanced race that lived on Earth before humans. They had created humans, and they made advanced technology like the Pieces of Eden and other futuristic weaponry. Their origins were entirely based around science fiction. Then, for some reason, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla, the Isu are portrayed as mythological beings with fantastical abilities that are somehow able to make the creatures from Greek and Viking folklore real through combining a piece of Eden with an individual alongside other fantastical feats. Their presentation was based around fantasy, which just demonstrated how Ubisoft started blurring the line between myth and truth and started disregarding and disrespecting their entire lore. New Capcom acted like Ubisoft with how they portrayed the Plagas with their fantastical interpretations. They blurred the line between science fiction and fantasy, and it just comes across as corny, goofy, and silly, which prevents me from taking the Plagas or this entire section with Ashley seriously. And clearly, New Capcom weren't taking themselves seriously. It's like they only designed these fantasy aspects just to create a lasting impact on the player so that they'll remember these moments or talk about them from the context of a horror section. How much more are they going to put Resident Evil 4 in a bad light with these terrible misrepresentations of the Plagas? I can only imagine people playing this Remilk who haven't played the original version of Resident Evil 4, looking at how the Plagas are portrayed and thinking this is how the Plagas are in Resident Evil 4 OG. New Capcom are just lampshading the Plagas' portrayal, and it's insulting. They just didn't care when designing this Remilk. But to talk about other dumb things with Ashley's section, I also find it funny how when you pick up the bunch of keys and go to use them, Ashley makes it seem like the enemies are moving while you're busy trying to use the keys, when in actuality, they're inactive until you resume control of Ashley. So why make this bunch of keys when it's practically on par with a single key that you're using like any other key in this pre-alpha? The existence of the bunch of keys is invalidated because of this. And also, if the Plagas are now working off of a fantastical highbind design, why are the Armaduras trying to kill Ashley? Shouldn't Sadler be connecting with them to make them try to capture her instead of kill her? If a Red Zealot was able to perform a stupid incantation to incapacitate a mindless BOW like the El Gigante, then you'd have to assume the same with the Armaduras or the Garradors, right? But apparently not, and the Armaduras and the Garradors are just outliers for some reason. The last thing that's dumb about Ashley's section is how the way you do her section affects Leon's ability to get the assault rifle. In Ashley's section, you are able to skip having to pick up the bunch of keys by just inputting the correct time into the clock, allowing you to get the Salazar family insignia and escape through a hidden door that you normally have to open yourself, but is now unlocked for you instead. So even though the developers had the foresight to open that door if you were trying to speed up Ashley's section, for some reason, they didn't think it necessary to also open up the hidden staircase that you normally have to lower in order to get the bunch of keys. So if you don't lower that staircase before turning around and inputting the correct time on the clock, the staircase isn't lowered for Leon, which is so dumb and only serves to waste your time. So if you're going to speed through Ashley's section and unlock the assault rifle for Leon, you have to make sure you lower the stairs first before going down into the mausoleum. Oh, and don't forget your lantern. I don't know why, but New Capcom didn't script the sequence in such a way where you need to have your lantern on you at all times. They actually allow you to leave your lantern behind and go down into the mausoleum. If you leave your lantern behind, the blue flame that normally stops the Armaduras after you do the gong sequence isn't active, so they scripted the activation of the blue flame to be tied to your lantern, yet you can go down in this area without the lantern. That is so bizarre. But upon doing this entire boring section, Ashley is able to get to where the switch for the cage is. She has difficulty pushing the dead zealot off the switch for some reason, yet conveniently, he has a key that allows the cage door to open, which is redundant if the switch is right there. Ashley tosses the key to Leon before Leon asks if she can make it down and that he can catch her if it's not possible. Ashley agrees to his suggestion, which is stupid because there is literally a ladder on the same balcony that Ashley is on. Why are they both acting like they didn't see the ladder from earlier? How did they miss the ladder that could have allowed Ashley to reunite with Leon easily? And it's because of them missing this ladder that Ashley chooses to wait where she is, allowing Vertigo to come out of nowhere to capture her. This is such a dumb idea for the screenplay. Why have Ashley go through a supposedly important character moment and go through all those moments that demonstrated her being brave and not trying to run when she's just going to get captured here? It's an unfulfilling conclusion to this part of her character arc that discredits her character moment. At least in Resident Evil 4 OG, when Ashley was by herself and she did her section, she had to act brave when dealing with the zealots and the Armaduras. She even utilized lanterns to burn the zealots that were attacking her. There's a better showcase of her acting brave that is then fulfilling in the end when she reunites with Leon and hugs him before apologizing for her earlier behavior. There's nothing that is invalidated in her section in Resident Evil 4 OG. The Remilk just completely invalidates all of her setup up by just having her be captured. All of what she did just amounted to nothing in the end. This is yet again another warning sign for pointless character dynamics. Also, when Leon shoots Vertigo, he bleeds, yet shooting his carapace isn't supposed to make him bleed like that. Even during his chapter 10 encounter, shooting him in the carapace doesn't make him bleed. So what's up with this inconsistency?